All right, we are live. Come on in, one and all. It is Live Stream Friday, TGIF. I am Dr. Steve, your humble host, your patriot professor, here to help you to think better so you can feel better in these crazy and turbulent times. So if you haven't done so, you know what to do. Make sure to smack that bell and subscribe button. We are live on both Rumble and YouTube. Super chats and super stickers are up. Send me your questions. I will answer them in due course. What do you say, gang? I mean, the Bud Light fallout continues. The Bud Light fallout continues as we together savor the victory of patriots over woke Inc. Now, trans influencers are freaking out. They're up in arms. They're livid. They can't get any brand deals anymore. All their brand partnerships are drying up after Bud Light threw Dylan Mulvaney under the bus. I mean, this is astonishing stuff. Trans influencers were once the hottest commodity on the market among woke Inc. And now they're persona non grata among those very same supposedly woke marketing execs. Those executives don't even want to go near them lest they arouse the ire of tens of millions of patriots, as did, unfortunately, Bud Light. So we're going to get into that. We're going to see how the sales and stock for Bud Light continue to collapse. There are rumors of mass layoffs now coming over at Bud Light. We're going to talk about that. And we're going to see the latest desperate attempt by Bud Light to beg their customers to come back. All that and more on this live stream Friday, this victorious live stream Friday. But first, gang, before you do anything else, make sure to click on that link below and visit our good friends over at Home Title Lock. I got to admit, I was absolutely shocked when I was recently shown just how easy it was to access the deed to my house. And not just access it, but actually change it. So if you don't know, the deed to your home is the only document that proves you own it. But the problem is that the deeds to our homes are all now online, often on dinky little websites of, county government offices. And criminals are free to find that deed very easily, forge your signature, refile as the new owner of your home, take tons of loans out using your home's equity, and then they stick you with all the debt that you don't find out about till months later, when the collection agencies start coming back. And don't expect homeowners insurance to bail you out, because it doesn't. But that's where our good friends over at Home Title Lock come in. Gang, they're amazing. Home Title Lock gives you the peace of mind that the deed to your home is absolutely and completely protected. Click on that link below right now. And what you want to do is use promo code Turley Talks. Then all you have to do is just enter your address for a no obligation home title scan to see if you've already been a victim of deed theft. That's a $100 value, absolutely and totally free with my promo code Turley Talks. Gang, don't wait for the worst to happen only to regret that you didn't do something about it when you could have. Click on that link below right now and secure your home today. All right, gang, let's dive right in here. So a couple of weeks back, we reported on a quarterly meeting call between the Anheuser-Busch CEO, Michael Dworkis, or Ducaris, sorry. A little Freudian slip there, right? Ducaris and very, very nervous investors. And the Daily Mail reported that the Anheuser-Busch CEO, in the Daily Mail's words, unceremoniously disowned the disastrous Dylan Mulvaney stunt, insisting it was not an official campaign for Bud Light. It was not an official ad campaign approved from the top. It was one can, guys, one can, referring to the Bud Light can bearing Mulvaney's face, which is now, I think, an emblem, a symbol of marketing absurdity, marketing disaster, right? How not to market your brand. And he said it was just one can. It was never meant for mass production. It was one incident. Guys, chill out. It wasn't a formal ad campaign, and we're putting a decisive stop to it. In other words, Bud Light threw Dylan Mulvaney under the bus. They wanted nothing more to do with this trans influencer, and let's all just pretend this whole disaster never happened. Now we're getting reports that disavowing of Dylan Mulvaney is having ripple effects among the wider trans influencer community, among wider brands. The New York Post is now reporting that trans influencers are experiencing a significant decline in brand partnership opportunities following the controversial Bud Light campaign involving Dylan Mulvaney. So just a few months ago, Mulvaney, is obviously a transgender influencer, enjoyed endorsements from prominent brands such as Nike, Bud Light, of course, and Maybelline, right? Mulvaney embarked on a very successful social media journey titled 365 Days of Girlhood. And all of that, of course, has collapsed from Mulvaney. But this disastrous partnership with Bud Light is now having subsequent backlash and ripple effects among trans influencers in general. So according to the Post, numerous trans influencers have come forward to express their concerns about the sudden drop in brand deals during a time when they're typically in high demand. And that's, of course, Pride Month. June's coming. So this is huge, right? I should be getting all these deals lined up for Pride Month. So Rose Montoya, a prominent trans influencer with over 1 million followers on TikTok and Instagram, never heard of this person, but Rose Montoya revealed a significant and uncharacteristic decline in the number of offers that Rose received. So last year at this time, Rose received over 100 brand partnership opportunities. This year, Rose has gotten barely a meager dozen. From 100 to a dozen. And Rose isn't alone. Another trans influencer by the name of Darren also confirmed a massive reduction in brand deals in the wake of the Dylan Mulvaney fiasco. So we're seeing a pattern emerge here. As it turns out, it's not just Bud Light that's backing away from this approach. A whole host of brands are now proving that all of this woke nonsense is literally nothing more than a marketing gimmick. They don't care. Put that in your woke pipe and smoke it. These marketing executives that claim that they are the woke's best friend don't give a rip about wokeness. They're not woke in terms of unbridled fidelity to the cause. The moment they see their bottom line adversely affected, these advertising executives drop the trans movement like John Fetterman slaughters prepositions. This is exactly what Vivek Ramaswamy was talking about or argued in his book, Woke Inc. He argued that corporations actually often use these social justice proclamations just as marketing gimmicks. They're nothing more than marketing tactics to maximize profit rather than genuinely advance progressive social and environmental goals and ideals. Which is very, very good news indeed, because what it reveals is that this woke insanity is a mile wide, but an inch deep, right? Corporations, well, I should a mile wide and an inch deep. I should do that. That's too deep for woke. In other words, corporations will abandon this nonsense in a heartbeat the moment they sense a massive backlash like Bud Light is experiencing. The moment they sense that, they will throw away all this woke nonsense and they'll go right back to good old-fashioned Americana marketing, right? Just ask these so-called trans influencers, right? Just ask the one influencer who's gone from having 100 brand partnerships all set up for June to now barely, just next to zero. And so much for the fidelity to the cause among these marketing executives, these virtue signaling marketing executives who will abandon it in a heartbeat the moment they realize their bottom line's impacted. In fact, it's not just trans influencers who are recognizing the sudden chill from marketing executives. This is interesting. Even so-called human rights organizations, I just love that term, human rights how do you dissent from that, right? They're all lib, they're all far left, right? So the moment you dissent from anything a human rights organization promotes, by definition, now you're anti-human. Right. But even human rights organizations are recognizing this hypocrisy among Woke Inc. USA Today is reporting that Anheuser-Busch, the maker of Bud Light, of course, has officially, I kid you not now, I hope you're sitting down, they have officially lost their LGBTQ plus rating from an organization called the Human Rights Campaign. The Human Rights Campaign has suspended Anheuser-Busch's Corporate Equality Index score, which evaluates companies based on their policies for LGBTQ plus employees. So companies with a score of 100, I think that's a perfect score, I'm assuming, receive a, quote, best places to work for LGBTQ plus equality seal of approval. I'm learning this stuff right along with you, gang. Anheuser-Busch, you may like to know this, previously had a score of 100. According to Human Rights Campaign, they were a perfect 100 for best places to work for LGBTQ plus equality. But no longer. No longer. Nope. No. Now Anheuser-Busch has 90 days to respond to the Human Rights Campaign, where they face a potential reduction to their score. I can't do this. I can't. I can't even believe there are people like this. I mean, how anyone could take this kind of banter seriously, I'll never understand. We're literally, we're not on different planets. We're in different galaxies. How this narcissistic organization, this so-called Human Rights Campaign, a campaign that speaks on behalf of all of humanity, let that hit you. Why they would think they matter at all to economic and business dynamics in any way, shape, or form, I'll never get it. I'll never get, especially in light of the latest numbers that have just come out for Bud Light. Market shares of Anheuser-Busch, the parent company of Bud Light, have dropped 7.6% since the company reported earnings on May 4th. The decline in stock value, of course, is attributed to the ongoing, that's key, the ongoing controversy surrounding Dylan Mulvaney. This thing has teeth. We knew it from the very beginning. This thing had teeth. This was not going to go away. Bud Light execs thought, oh, don't worry, it'll be done in a weekend. A little hoopla, and it's done. No way. And we're going to talk about precisely why this was the single most successful boycott in history, right? We get to savor the taste of victory in this, and we continue to savor it. Keeps going. The bleeding won't stop. It won't stop. Data from Bump Williams Consulting and Nielsen NIQ shows that Bud Light sales during the week of May 6th declined by nearly 24% compared to the same period last year. That marks, get this, the fourth consecutive week of declining sales for Bud Light. A month of consecutive declining sales. 4 weeks in a row. This is why so many are arguing it's the most successful boycott ever. Conservative commentator Matt Walsh agrees, quote, "We have devastated Bud Light with this boycott, easily the most effective conservative boycott in American history, and it shows us the path forward. All it takes is a little bit of strategic planning and follow through. The great thing is that this was completely grassroots. Many prominent Republicans were actively against the boycott. We did this on our own, a great victory, but it is not over. In other words, keep going. Don't let the pressure off for a moment. We want Bud Light crying uncle and crying it loudly for all other businesses who are thinking of going woke to hear loud and clear. And that's exactly what seems to be happening with these reports of trans influencers losing their brand deals en masse. Again, somebody having 100 brand deals ready for June, LGBT month, or Gay Pride month, now is down to barely a dozen. And so if these so-called human rights organizations think that threatening these dying businesses with downgrading their LGBTQ plus ratings, that they actually think that that's going to intimidate anyone as compared to the massive boycotts coming from mid-America, it's destroying their stock value and their sales, then these human rights campaigns are more out of touch with reality than any of us thought. Now, it gets worse. There are now rumors of mass layoffs. That's right. Tomi Lahren of Fox is reporting on some info she got from a current employee over at Bud Light. And according to Lahren, the employee revealed that things are looking bleak, to say the least, at the company. Production is basically at a standstill. Obviously, they can't even give away the beer. You saw that, right? They're trying to give away cases of beer for free to distributors, and the distributors are like, where are we going to put it? Nobody wants to buy it in the first place. You're just taking up more inventory room. And on top of that standstill of production, there are now rumors of mass layoffs to come. And it gets worse. And as if that weren't bad enough, you ready for this? Now Bud Light may actually be under federal investigation. I kid you not. It just, when it rains, it pours, gang. Senator Ted Cruz and Senator Marsha Blackburn have called for an investigation into Bud Light's alleged marketing to children. Ted Cruz is claiming that the Dylan Mulvaney campaign, the very campaign that caused these sales to implode, well, it may have actually also been illegal. It may have actually ended up targeting teenagers and younger individuals. Cruz and Blackburn, in a joint effort, sent a letter to the Beer Institute, I guess it's a regulating organization, urging the organization's Code Compliance Review Board to examine the extent to which Anheuser-Busch, of course, the parent company of Bud Light, knowingly marketed their product to underage individuals. And what these senators are doing is they're expressing their concern over Mulvaney's online presence. They cite posts referencing days of girlhood, not womanhood, girlhood, and showcasing activities such as shopping for Barbie dolls, which they argue were aimed at teenagers and younger children. So Bud Light, in employing this person, is in effect trying to advertise their product to that same demographic, that underage demographic. I mean, how do things not get worse for Bud Light? It's insane. But all of this now, we have to take stock of what's happening here, because this success, this absolute, unbelievable, undeniable patriot victory over Woke Inc. begs the question, what's going on? Why is this so demonstrably successful? Why have we so powerfully been able to push back against this woke mind virus this time? We've tried it before. But now, I mean, this is the recipe. This is the playbook from this point forward. How did it work? What was the necessary precondition for this campaign and its success? But first, as many of you may have noticed, I've lost a few pounds of late. I've been getting a lot. Look at that. Put that back, Josh. Look at that. Who is that? How did I want to know something. I still need to, Josh, our moderators, but Josh, I got to know from you and my colleagues, how did you not harpoon me every time you saw me? I mean, look at me. Look at me. I mean, I guess there was so much more of me to love, right? Gang, I've lost over 60 pounds. 60 pounds. And that's thanks to the fantastic nutrition coaching of PhD Weight Loss. PhD Weight Loss is a 100% over the phone nutrition and behavior coaching program that, as you can see, I cannot possibly recommend enough. I ain't preaching it to you. I ain't selling it to you. I'm demonstrating it to you. I am a product of PhD Weight Loss. I was able to eat delicious meals all while reaching my weight loss milestones in record time. And it was one of the easiest things I ever did. They completely take out all the guesswork behind what, when, and how much to eat. They make the process painless, simple. It's easy as possible. I can't believe I didn't do this sooner. Dr. Ashley Lucas is a renowned former ballet dancer and has her PhD in nutrition. And she's been helping thousands of Americans achieve their health goals for over 15 years. And the best part about PhD Weight Loss is that once you hit your goal weight, your maintenance support is like free for life. So when you need that help readjusting, if you start to gain any of that pesky weight back, they got your back. So make sure you give them a call, gang. They're amazing. 864-644-1900. Or if you feel like, just click on the link below. Go to their website, join me and thousands of other patriots who are taking back control of our health as I fall apart here. Click on that link below right now or go to myphdweightloss.com. 60 pounds, gang. 60 pounds. All right. They're wonderful. I couldn't recommend a service more. Let's get our health back, and then let's take back our nation. All right. I got a running theory here on why there was such a massive, massive backlash, on why you had the likes of Kid Rock and Travis Tritt and all of these conservative stars coming out en masse and saying, that's it, we've had it. F Bud Light, we've had it. You crossed the line here. And my running theory, you want to grab your pen for this one. My running theory draws from classical geopolitics, ancient geopolitics. And ancient geopolitics recognized very different spatial logics that operate between what they called sea powers and land powers. So the Greek term, the ancient Greek term, would be thalassocracies. Sorry, I always get that wrong. Thalassocracies for sea powers and teleocracies for land powers. Thalassocracies and thalassocracies, yeah, and teleocracies. Those are fancy schmancy words that designate sea powers versus land powers. And the interesting theory here is that societies that are built on coasts by the sea tend to create very different cultures than those that are built in heartlands. So land cultures generally are very fixed. They're very traditional. And that's because the land doesn't change. The land exemplifies a sense of permanence that's then reflected in the culture. And culture anthropologists have talked about that, how the culture we create inevitably interacts with our ecology. And so that's why you get different cultures in different regions of the world. I mean, just even think about our music instruments. Our music instruments are very ecological. So if you go to the Middle East, they'll have their own instrument. If you go to the rainforest, they'll have their own instruments, because they're making the instruments. Their instruments are being designed from their ecology, right? From the land resources around them. So people who are land people who are in the heartland, tend to create a particular kind of culture that reflects the permanence and the stability of land. But sea-oriented cultures are very different if you think about it, right? They're generally in flux. They love change. They love fluidity. And that's because the sea is constantly moving without a hard center. Think of the term astronaut. That's a very interesting word. Astro is Greek for star, and naut comes from the Greek novtos, which is derived, we derive the word nautical from it. So the astronaut is literally floating through space, right? Where there's no center, there's no gravity, very much like the sea. And so the politics that tend to derive from these two contrasting spaces, land and sea, are often very different. And so my running theory here is that America's heartland, and all of you, most of my audience is obviously from the heartland, but America's heartland, the space of patriots and patriot culture, Christianity, trucks, guns, country music, faith, family, and freedom. People in that culture are generally very tolerant people. That's the hilarity in terms of the disparity of how we're portrayed among the woke legacy media. But we're incredibly tolerant people, especially with wokeness. And here's the key, though. As long as wokeness stays on its side of that geographical political divide, as long as it stays in coastal elite centers like LA or Orlando or New York, right? So if Disney wants to go woke, go ahead. We don't care. If Hollywood wants to go woke, go ahead. We don't give a flip what you do in LA. If Netflix wants to go woke, hey, go for it. Nike, NBA, we could care less. We don't give a rip. But the moment Bud Light decided to go woke, the moment the beer of choice among so many in the heartland, the moment Bud Light decided to sort of cross that political geographical barrier and try to bring wokeness into the heartland, into one of the staples of the heartland, that was it. You crossed a line. That's when it left its legitimate confines, as it were, of its own spatial political parameters and tried to invade the heartland. And the heartland collectively said what? What did the heartland collectively say? Well, you heard it from Kid Rock, right? F Bud Light. Hell no. You're not welcome here. Get the hell out. This is our home and we're not moving. You're not taking it. This is the key, I think, and Victor Davis Hanson has talked about this so much. Wokeness has taken every single cultural lever of power out there, right? So whether we're talking about politics, whether we're talking about the universities, Woke Inc., NBA, NFL, Hollywood, Disney, you name it. It's taken over all the cultural levers of power, just like cultural Marxists have always theorized of doing. But wokeness has yet to take over the hearts and minds of the people. And it can't. We're finding it can't. It can't because wokeness is it even splits the left, as we've talked about a lot on this channel. Even people like Piers Morgan and Bill Maher. Elon Musk said this last election was the first time he ever voted for a Republican. A lot of guys who would have considered themselves center left are now being referred to as far right by their fellow leftist but woke ilk. And so wokeness, it seems to me, cannot possibly win the people because it ends up splitting even its own political aisle, the aisle in which it's situated on the left. So it unites the right and it splits the left. The right is united in that anything woke they despise. And then the left is split in that you put forward anything woke, 50% say, yeah, I'm all for it. But 50%, like Bill Maher, say, no way, go away, especially with the trans issues. So this is what I think. I think what's happening here is that wokeness, this is proof that wokeness has not, it's won all the other cultural institutions, but it has not won the people. And what you just saw is what happens when the people themselves feel threatened by wokeness. Threatened in the sense that now it's crossed over its political geographical barrier, its wall. Now it's coming into our backyard. It's coming into our faith, family, and freedom communities, and we are going to defend it. And that's the kind of, I think, cultural civil war, this clash of civilization within a civilization that we're seeing here, right? The two nations within a single country. I think it's very much derived from two very different spatial logics. That's my running theory in this. And I think it accounts for why the backlash against Bud Light has been so utterly visceral. I mean, again, I compare it to the race riots back in 2020. Heartland folk were like, hey, guys, you want to burn down your own cities? You want to burn down your own backyard? Go right ahead. Go right ahead. But the moment that chaos starts spilling over into the suburbs and even possibly exurbs, the moment you want to try to bring that mayhem into our rural towns and communities, we're going to have problems. We're going to have some serious problems. And the rioters and activists found out real fast that the moment they crossed that geographical boundary from urban to suburban, you remember it, right? They were greeted with armed citizens by full-blown patriot militias, telling them in no uncertain terms the very same thing we're seeing patriots tell the Bud Light trans campaign: you ain't welcome here. Don't bring your woke insanity here. So I think that accounts for the extraordinary backlash that Bud Light has been experiencing, these geographical political dynamics. And we can see it in terms of how, I think one of the proofs of it is we could see it in terms of how Mid-America and Southern beer distributors in particular are responding. So for example, we have a Montgomery-based Anheuser-Busch beer distributor called Bama Budweiser. They are publicly expressing their radical dissatisfaction with the Dylan Mulvaney controversy from the headquarters, as it were, even though the headquarters denied that they had given the green light for this thing. But Bama Budweiser, it's very interesting. They're airing a bunch of 1-minute radio ads on several local radio stations, stating their total opposition to this Dylan Mulvaney ad campaign. So in effect, Bama Budweiser is telling their customers, gang, this was a corporate decision, not a distributor decision. And so distributors are on the front lines to the consumers. So this is by definition a corporate consumer divide, right? This is a people versus permanent political class like divide. It's the consumer versus the corporate CEO. And what Bama Budweiser is saying is, we are thoroughly on your side, the side of the consumer. What the woke headquarters is doing here has nothing to do with us. It's got nothing to do with our values, which are the same as yours: faith, family, and freedom. That's what we're all about. And so this means now that local distributors in the heartland are pressuring the Anheuser-Busch headquarters to respond to their customers favorably and positively, that they need to apologize and they need to completely and totally forsake ever even thinking of going woke again. And in fairness, that pressure appears to be working. It's being reported now that Anheuser-Busch is fully redesigning its Bud Light and Budweiser packaging in accordance with the traditional sentiments that they so thoroughly offended. Apparently, they're going to be rolling out aluminum bottles with a camouflage print and images of the Folds of Honor program, which provides educational scholarships for children and spouses of fallen and disabled military vets. And they're going to be service members and first responders. They're going to be discounting the beer. They're going to be investing in sports marketing and incorporating themes like the U.S. military and country music in their advertising. Faith, family, and freedom, all in obvious, desperate bid to try to get back their customers. That means to get back the heartland. We'll see if it works. We'll see if it works, but it's all a collective indicator that we won, gang. The heartland, when we stick together, and I see the heartland as the Midwest and the South, red state America. and red counties, by the way, and red even in blue states, which are growing by leaps and bounds, even as the Biden blue counties in blue states are shrinking. It's really quite fascinating phenomenon. But if we stick together and we defend our turf, as it were, in terms of that, geopolitical, geographical, cultural significance, if we do something like that, I think we'll find that we're going to win these woke battles every single time. This was a massively successful boycott campaign, and its ripple effects throughout the woke world are continuing with no end in sight. Over to you, gang. Let's see what kind of questions you got for me. Throw those questions in the chat box. We got super chat up. We got super stickers up over at Rumble. As Josh, our moderator, assembles the questions, you need to click on that link below and learn how you can pay off your home. Get this, in 5 to 7 years on your current income. I'm not kidding. 5 to 7 years on your current income. Would that not be amazing? Well, amazing is just a click away, gang. You need to watch this video with Michael Lush, founder and CEO of Replace Your University. He's about to reveal the bulletproof financial blueprint that will change your life forever. And how much do we need that now with all of this economic insanity that's going on? But beware, gang. Beware. This is not your typical financial advice. It's a daring, patriot-based, unconventional approach that challenges everything you thought about, you knew about money. Are you ready to take that leap and embrace the unknown? Click that link below to join the revolution. Discover the truth that will set you free. But be warned, once you see the light, there's no going back. Click on that link below right now. All right, Josh, what do we got here? Let's get some cues from you guys. Jeff Phillips. Hey, Jeff. Good to see you, buddy. Raised in Delaware. A fellow Delawarean. My mom got Biden elected in 72. Back. Was that his first year? Oy. Oh, I know. Yeah, he just played. I mean, again, it was a different politics back then, but then he established himself as just a good old boy from Scranton, moved down to Claymont, and my blue collar parent, blah, blah, blah. I mean, he's from a at least six figure income family. It's all nonsense, as he has a propensity to spout whenever he makes any sense. Yeah, unfortunately, Delaware's about as blue gets in terms of the demographics here. It's going to be very hard to change. Newcastle County and the like. It seems beyond hope, at least where we are demographically right now. Next, Rudd Hanson. Thank you, sir, Rudd, from Denmark. You know, Rudd, I hope I'm saying that right, Rudd, for Rude. I just read an article that Denmark's farmers are rising up along with the Netherlands farmers in solidarity against the WEF and the crazy, insane environmental tyranny that's basically being imposed upon them. So I have to do a little bit more research on that, but I was thinking of doing a video on that. I haven't done a good Danish video in a while, but God bless you guys. And how's the Danish People's Party doing? They were doing well for a while, but they seem to drop the ball. So I have to see what's going on there. God bless over at Denmark. I have lots of good friends in Denmark. Next, Twisted Clown. Ford just joined Bud Light, did they? Yeah, again, a lot of them are playing out just like what we saw. Well, it was different. It was slightly different with Miller Lite. That was for back in March with the Women's Month. But nobody thought they should have taken that campaign down real fast after what they saw happen to Bud Light. A lot of these are campaigns that have already been in the works for the last few months, getting ready for Pride Month. So, and they don't have the internal structure to stop them. I mean, they can, but for whatever reason, people in charge, again, I think largely because of the clash in values, the CEOs are going to be part of these coastal cosmopolitan elite values that can't even relate to their customers, their heartland customers. So Ford is going to suffer the same backlash as Bud Light, no question. Next, did you see Miller Lite did the same thing? Yeah, Mitchell, I did a vid on that 2 days ago, I think. And again, they're getting the backlash in the same way. In fairness to them, it was before this Bud Light controversy, about a month before. But again, it's just simple, stupid, woke nonsense, more of the same. And people just don't want to have anything to do with it anymore. It's great. It's beautiful. Nick, an Egyptian lawyer, is suing Netflix for Cleopatra. I think I read something about that. Right? And something akin to misinformation or what have you, because this latest Cleopatra is so bad. Was it a Netflix? Yeah, Netflix. It's so bad. I was thinking of doing a video on it. Just the backlash against that is just so patently absurd. Right, Cleopatra, who's Coptic, right? She's basically Greek. It's being depicted as, well, you guys know, what's going on there. So yeah, I would love to see that. I would love to see that. Absolutely. This is what I like, even just with what Marsha Blackburn and Ted Cruz are doing with Bud Light, and saying, hey, you know what? We're going to put you under federal investigation for marketing to kids. I mean, just turn up the heat and knock them from every side, so they never even think of doing something as absurd like this again. JRG Projects beer has been a part of social networking. The revolution was war gamed in the Green Dragon. Going after beer for the woke left is the same as bars closing. Interesting. During C19, the leftists can't stand not having power in our lives. I think that's so fascinating. JRG Projects. I think you're right on. I mean, Nigel Farage has talked about how Brexit was originally born in a pub, when all is said and done. What he found is, whenever he would go back, he was obviously a Eurocrat. He was part of the UKIP, if I recall, originally for the European Parliament. And whenever he'd come back to England and he would go to his local pub, what he would hear from the vast majority of the people surrounding him is how much they just despise being a part of the EU. And he recognized it was this kind of networking, this kind of sociability, in conviviality, in fellowship, and in the pipe smoking and the swift half, that they were that a political movement was being born, and it just needed to get tapped into. And if it was given the right organization, you need leadership. We need our William Wallaces. If you just get the right kind of leadership, that'll be the tip of the sword to make this thing hit its target bullseye. And that's exactly what happened. So I think you're onto it. I think the shutting down of bars, I think the shutting down of any kind of fellowship space, even online, is key for the left to maintain its control. I think that's fantastic observation. I think you're right on. Mitchell Ryan, do you think Scott, U.S., will strike down gun bans eventually? I think, SCOTUS will strike down gun bans. I do. I just think they've. I won't call it impeccable, but I think, scholars have noticed since the late 2000s, that the Supreme Court decisions, and that's going back even with Kennedy on there, the Supreme Court decisions since Judge Roberts were consistently in favor of a full-blown enforcement and defense of the Second Amendment. And it goes all the way back to Heller versus D.C., and I think that was 2006, 2007, when D.C. tried to ban handguns. And obviously they got sued. It went all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court overturned the ban. And ever since then, in that decision, they said unequivocally, you as an individual have a pre-political right to own firearms. Prior to Heller versus D.C., the Supreme Court was very wobbly on this issue. It didn't, before the whole gun control craze, they didn't get a lot of cases of gun control. But once gun control became big, I believe in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, during the leftist activist period, 90s, of course, it's so-called assault weapons bans, even though there's no such thing as assault weapon, things like that, right? We ban something that doesn't actually exist. That's when the Supreme Court had to render decisions on what exactly is the Second Amendment. And up until Heller versus DC, they were pretty wishy-washy on it. They basically said, well, the Second Amendment is it's for a well-formed militia. So it's a collective thing. It's a collective thing. It's something for each state to decide, and it decides for its population as a whole, not individual persons. Doesn't necessarily apply to individual persons. Heller versus DC shattered that. It destroyed that and said, you as an individual person, that's what the Bill of Rights are for. They're for the individual. You as an individual person have the right to own firearm. And now we're finding that means you have the right to conceal carry. You have the, you name it. You have the red flag laws. They're knocking down red flag laws left and right. So I think the Second Amendment has been one of the great triumphs of the Roberts Court, because it's where it seemed to take its turn for the last 15 years. So I'm very confident with that. Again, I know they can look scary. They can look scary when you see something like, Supreme Court allows a particular ban to stay. They give a stay, but it's a temporary stay as they work it out through the system. In the end, when they make a final decision, they tend to knock down all gun bans. So anyway, we'll see. We'll see where it goes. All right. Let's see. Who will Trump pick for VP? Chauncey, good to hear from you. Good question. Good question. I mean, yeah, I know we should start doing some kind of pool on this one, huh? DeSantis is blowing it. DeSantis is absolutely destroying it. If he enters next week, I think that's it. He's gonna get clobbered just politically. Already the media is trying to hurt him and make him bleed. This whole thing with Disney is so goofy. As I understand it, Disney wasn't going to go ahead with this $1 billion expansion months ago. They're just showing it now just to try to hurt DeSantis politically. So I think DeSantis is just killing himself here. It's word on the street is it's going to have to be somebody that the establishment actually doesn't want, because then they can take out Trump early on and then put this person in. So it can't be a Pence-like figure. Can't be a Rhino. Can't be like a Lindsey Graham, for example. So it's got to be somebody they're even more afraid of than Trump. That's what Robert Barnes on Viva Frei they were both talking about this, I think, recently. So what, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Carrie Lake, Robert F. Kennedy. The logic between that, the logic for that is RFK basically agrees with Trump and MAGA populists with 80% of things. The establishment is freaked out over him because they see him as just this anti-vax conspiracy theorist. And he's garnering 20% of the Democratic vote, the populist Democratic vote, that he may be able to convince to come over and join our side. And then boom, we have a new coalition, a thoroughly populist coalition that will possibly be the final death knell to the establishment. So those would be three that seem to keep popping up in the lists. And the key characteristic is they are totally unacceptable to the establishment. That keeps Trump safe. They won't get rid of him. And they're also very good campaigners too. Marjorie Taylor Greene, Carrie Lake, RFK, fantastic campaigners. They can rouse up a crowd. And that's what you want from a VP. All right. Thanks, Chauncey, for that. Paul Ross, what are your thoughts on RFK Jr.? There you go. Perfect. We are thinking the same way, Paul. And thank you for the pounds sterling. There, I miss my days over across the pond. So RFK Jr. Yeah. So the key with RFK is he represents the populist left. And so it's, for me, it's very comparable to the way Lega and Five Star in Italy teamed up back in 2018. So Five Star won 30% of the parliamentary vote. Lega won 17%. All you need is 40% in Italy. And Steve Bannon said, "Look, Five Star, you're this Bernie Sanders sort of populist left, and Lega, you're Trump, Pat Buchanan, populist right. But you guys are both populists. You're both anti-establishment. And what we can do is, if we bring you two together, we can permanently marginalize the center left and center right." And they did. And they did for a good, 18 months or so. Immigration levels plummeted 95% because Salvini was the deputy prime minister and he oversaw border security. So it was absolutely astonishing how they were able to sideline for several months both the center left, center right. Salvini made a move. He was very, very popular. They were getting 30% or so in the polls, Lega at the time. And Five Star dropped like 10% or even single digits. So he thought he could make his move. Five Star said they would never, ever team up with the center left Social Democrats, but they did. They did when Salvini made his move to try to force new elections. The populist left teamed up with the establishment left, and so you got that technocratic government for another 12 months, 18 months or so, and then the moment it fell apart and they unleashed it to the people to vote, what did you see? You saw this massive populist right revolt with the Brothers of Italy, and now Giorgia Meloni is the most popular leader according to opinion polls in all of Europe. So that's the logic, I think, the logic of bringing RFK and Trump together, with Trump obviously being the presidential candidate, RFK the vice presidential candidate. You're creating a populist realignment that would ultimately, I think, be a new Republican Party, a patriot party, but that will move left on economics. But that's been the recipe of success all over the world. You move right on culture, left on economics, put those two together, boom, you get super majorities in your votes. So anyway, we'll see how that works out. Doc Holiday, thank you for helping to keep our spirits up during these dark times. Thank you, Doc. Thank you for keeping mine up. I really appreciate it. MDE, do you think LGBTQ will be considered a religious practice, like praying in school is taboo now? It's interesting. I'm assuming from SCOTUS, perhaps, like they did with secular humanism. And Clarence Thomas, in one of his district courts that he oversees, every Supreme Court justice actually has a district that they oversee. I think that's the technical term. And he allowed. He did it the opposite. He allowed Bible studies to take place in schools as long as they were voluntary. To do otherwise would mean that secularism, which is every bit a worldview, would be the dominant world. The government would be taking a side on worldviews in that case. It'd be interesting to see. I don't know. I haven't thought about that. I mean, just LGBTQ itself as a religious practice. I'd have to think about that to the extent that the identity has a certain religiosity to it. I mean, I think, being trained in cultural anthropology, I assume virtually everything is religious. Culture has the term cult at the heart of it, right? Some kind of sacred that binds and holds populations together. And that sacred is considered absolute and unquestionable, inviolable, unfalsifiable, you name it. So that's why it tends to, when it gets pushed to its logical outwork, it tends to be rooted in the eternal and the infinite and the like. So there's a logic to that. We'd have to see. You got me on that one. I'd have to think about that a bit. Kelly Williams, there are many gays and lesbians, even quite a few trans, who are breaking away from the trans activists in the community, even Caitlyn Jenner. And many more say enough is enough. You're absolutely right. I think this is key. And this is why I don't like Jordan Peterson. We've got a video you want to check out on Jordan Peterson absolutely torching a woke leftist on trans issues, because what he shows is we keep use this term, and I do it too, just because it's it's the term du jour, but we keep using this term, the trans community or the LGBT community, as if it's actually a community, right? Again, cultural anthropologists would say communities are generally highly organized aggregate populations bound together by common practices, beliefs, goals, desires, and the like. So diversity of thought, diversity of practice, diversity of opinion and perspective tends to get swept under the rug whenever we use this term community, because it suggests some kind of unity there or uniformity, and it doesn't exist. It's a made up concept in what's known as social ontology, in a constructed social ontology. Social ontologies, people, places, things, artifacts, and stuff that we claim exist in society, but they may not. So Biden says white supremacism is the greatest threat facing our nation today. But you look at every single study out there, every single poll out there, racist attitudes have never been lower than they are now. Racism, blatant racism, has never been lower. 50 years ago, if you asked somebody the question, do you support interracial marriage? 90% would have said no. Today, 90% say no problem. And there's a whole list of indicators that you can find that are technically known as racist indicators. And every single one of them have dropped dramatically. Every single one of them. So we use this term community to pretend something exists out there in our society when it doesn't. It's a construct. It's a construct that's imposed upon us to try to influence and shape the way we imagine our world. So absolutely, I know exactly what you're talking about. I know personally the LGBT population out there is extremely diverse and is increasingly rejecting wokeness. We see it among our influencers as well on social media. And that fits with the pattern that wokeness splits the left. Those who are naturally associated with the woke left, but many are coming to the right now because they see the right as libertarian enough. Again, we're a very tolerant people. It's libertarian enough for them to be able to live their lives while not having to sacrifice, intellectual integrity when it comes to having to adopt political wokeness. Excellent point, Kelly. Chauncey, the DeSantis for president phenomenon really rubs me the wrong way. To me, it seems he's carrying water for the establishment and betraying his MAGA supporters. Love to hear your thoughts on this. Absolutely. Absolutely. I look, when all's said and done, I think what's happening here with DeSantis is this is 100% fabricated by the establishment. DeSantis is considered the establishment's guy. They thought they could unite the MAGA vote with the Mike Pence vote via a Ron DeSantis, and they couldn't be more wrong. You're not going to out MAGA Trump. It's just not going to happen. And we have data. Rich Barris, the People's Pundit, has pointed out we have data that show that DeSantis picks up about 5, 6, 7% of the Republican vote that would never, ever vote for Trump, the never Trumpers. Whereas he loses 40 to 50% of the Republican vote that are all Trump. It's Trump or bust. And we found out in the midterms, it's very hard to get the MAGA crowd to come out and just vote Republican. We found that out in 2018, and we found that out in 2022. I mean, in 2020, Trump won more. This is, again, it's beyond even, I can't even begin to comprehend this. Anybody who would even question this, Trump got more votes than any president running for re-election in history. He got more votes than Reagan. He got more votes. MAGA came out for this guy, and they'll come out for him again in 2024. So, but there's nothing to suggest that DeSantis could even have remotely that kind of success. Nothing. And it's very, very hard to translate statewide success into national success. Just ask Chris Christie, right? Who's just become a goon on MSNBC and CNN. And so just ask Scott Walker. Just ask Jeb Bush, or Rick Perry. It is very hard to translate your statewide success into a full electoral map success. And I see no indicator whatsoever that DeSantis is anywhere close to doing it. So there you go. Super sticker, clearly not woke. Thank you, sir. Thank you so much. And I love the emblem. Love it. Renata Quinino, thank you so much for that super sticker. Is it Julie? Do you think Elon will keep Twitter a free speech platform after the CEO takes over? It looks like more like the rat experiment by giving us some back only to take it away again. I hope that doesn't happen, obviously, but he certainly didn't calm any fears with the recent appointment. That's for sure. Now, we'll have to see. I just did a video on the WEF basically collapsing. It's basically falling apart. New York Times is admitting that. Its influence, even CNN has pointed out, its influence has never been weaker than it is right now. Its influence is waning because the world is changing. The world is becoming much more multipolar, whereas WEF required a unipolar world. The world is turning its back on central banks, whereas the WEF requires central banks to basically institute their policies with the not NGO, I'm thinking, but with all of their environmental policies and the like. And the lockdowns were a disaster. The lockdowns were an absolute disaster. And I think in many respects, that was a trial run for environmentalist lockdowns inspired by the WEF. And populations want nothing to do with these lockdowns anymore. Again, China may continue to do it regionally and so forth, but the United States, Canada, they're ready to blow up. To have Europe, they're just going to blow up just look at what happened in the Netherlands with the Farmers Party, the BBB, in a brand new party taking over parliament. So WEF just doesn't have the kind of influence anymore. So I wouldn't be surprised if these are just kind of WEF folk they're just rats fleeing the ship. And she's just going to be, she's got all the connections in the world. And so this would be a job like this would be sort of the natural fit. But no, I think if they were to start clamping down on free speech on Twitter, it would be a disaster and everyone would move over to Truth Social. I mean, they would say, that's it, we're done. It would be an absolute disaster. So there's no reason to do it from the bottom line perspective. No reason for Elon Musk to allow it to be done. So we'll see. It certainly doesn't look good, but I don't think we have to worry about it at this point. Rumble chat. Is that my name? Did you put my name on there? Crash Bandit. Oh, maybe you're sending it through there. Crash Bandit. They need to call people terrorists to use the powers of the Patriot Act will give the government. Of course. Oh, I see. Got it. Okay. I'm getting my Rumble, my YouTube. Absolutely. It is so odd if you think it through what's happened, the inverse that's happened. Back in 2002, it's the Republicans that are pushing for the Patriot Act, right? So as to protect us from terrorists. In 2022, to be poetic, It's Republicans now who are the terrorists. We're the terrorists, right? We're the insurrectionists. So let that underscore for you how much our politics is inverting, how big this paradigm shift is. The very party that gave us the Patriot Act is now the victim of the surveillance of that act, right? So let that hit you. So yes, it's concerning what's happening, but it's also extremely exciting to show you how much our party has changed. We are truly becoming the Patriot Party, and it's awesome. And we're going to fight back and fight back very strongly. Is that it? All right, guys. You are awesome. I love every one of you. Make sure you have a wonderful weekend with the people that you love, and then do the things that matter the most, right? Faith, family, and freedom. Love you guys. Have a great weekend. I'll see you on Monday. God bless.